Rocky loves fatherhood and having a family. The first time Rocky held his son, the world did something strange. It didn't stop. It didn't freeze. It didn't burst into fireworks or thunderous applause the way movies promise. Instead, it softened. The hospital room lights dimmed into something almost sacred. The beeping machines turned into background music. The air itself seemed to breathe with him. And Rocky, who had once measured his worth in victories, strength, and endurance, felt something far more powerful than triumph. He felt needed. Not admired. Not feared. Not envied. Needed. That single moment rewrote him. And from that second forward, fatherhood became the greatest title he would ever carry. The man before the moment. Before fatherhood, Rocky was known for resilience. For showing up. For taking hits and standing up again. His life had always been about proving something, to himself, to the world, to anyone who doubted him. He had grown up believing strength was survival. That emotions were luxuries. That vulnerability was something you tucked away like an old injury. He worked hard. He loved deeply. But there was always a part of him that remained guarded, as if the world were still an opponent waiting in the corner. Then fatherhood arrived, and suddenly there was no opponent. Only a tiny heartbeat resting against his chest. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. He needed to protect. And that changed everything. The first night home. The first night at home with a newborn is not glamorous. There are no cheering crowds. No victory belts. No structured rounds. There is crying. Uncertainty. Sleeplessness. A constant whisper in your mind asking, "Am I doing this right?" Rocky sat in the dim glow of the living room lamp at 3:17 a.m., cradling his son who refused to sleep anywhere except in his arms. His wife dozed on the couch, exhausted beyond words. He didn't mind. He didn't glance at the clock in frustration. He didn't think about what he was missing. He studied his son's face instead. The tiny nose. The uneven breaths. The way his fingers instinctively curled around Rocky's thumb with astonishing strength. And for the first time in his life, Rocky understood that strength didn't always roar. Sometimes it gripped your finger at 3:17 in the morning. Redefining strength. Rocky had always believed strength was physical. Now he discovered a different kind. Strength was patience when the crying wouldn't stop. Strength was learning how to install a car seat properly 3 times because almost right wasn't good enough. Strength was choosing to stay calm when fear crept in over every cough, every fever, every fall. Strength was apologizing when he made a mistake. Strength was telling his child, "I love you," every single day without hesitation. Fatherhood stripped away the illusion that toughness meant silence. It revealed that real courage was showing up emotionally. And Rocky showed up. Falling in love again. He had loved before. Deeply. But watching his partner become a mother awakened a new dimension of respect. He saw her exhaustion and her endurance. He saw the way she memorized every detail about their child, the feeding times, the subtle cues, the softest blankets. They became a team in a way they never had before. There were no scorecards in this partnership. No winners. Only shared responsibility and shared joy. Some nights they laughed deliriously at their own fatigue. Other nights they leaned on each other in silence. And in the middle of it all, they built something stronger than either of them had known before. A family. The first smile. There are milestones parents pretend not to wait for. The first smile. The first laugh. The first time tiny eyes follow you across the room. Rocky didn't realize how much he was hoping for that first smile until it happened. It came unexpectedly one afternoon while he was making exaggerated faces and ridiculous sounds. His son's eyes locked onto his, and then, slowly, a grin spread across that tiny face. It wasn't gas. It wasn't accidental. It was recognition. "You're mine," that smile seemed to say. And in that moment, Rocky felt chosen. Not as a champion. Not as a provider, but as dad. Learning to slow down. Before fatherhood, Rocky's days moved fast. Productivity mattered. Efficiency mattered. Momentum mattered. But children operate on a different timeline. They notice ants crossing sidewalks. They stop mid-walk to stare at clouds. They ask questions that unravel entire afternoons. Why is the sky blue? Where does the moon go? Why do people cry? Rocky began answering. Then he began wondering. Then he began slowing down. Walks became explorations. Bedtime stories became performances. Grocery store trips turned into treasure hunts. He discovered that joy often lived in moments he once would have rushed through. Fatherhood taught him to pause. The fear that comes with love. No one talks enough about the fear. When you love something with your entire being, the vulnerability can be overwhelming. Rocky found himself double-checking locks at night. He researched car safety ratings with obsessive intensity. He kept emergency numbers memorized. It wasn't paranoia. It was devotion. The more he loved, the more he understood the weight of responsibility. And yet he wouldn't trade that fear. Because it meant he had something worth protecting. Teaching what matters. As his child grew, the questions changed. Why can't I have that? Why do some kids have more? Why do people fight? These weren't bedtime curiosities anymore. They were moral crossroads. Rocky realized fatherhood wasn't just about presence. It was about example. He couldn't preach kindness and then display impatience. He couldn't demand honesty and then cut corners. He couldn't talk about courage while avoiding hard conversations. His child was always watching. And so Rocky became more intentional. He apologized when he lost his temper. He explained his decisions. He modeled respect. Not because he was perfect, but because he wanted his child to grow into someone who valued integrity. The sound of laughter. There is a specific kind of laughter that fills a house when a child feels safe. It echoes. It bounces off walls. It lingers in doorways. Rocky learned that the sound of his child's laughter was more rewarding than any applause he had ever heard. They wrestled on living room floors. They built forts out of couch cushions. They invented games with rules that changed every 5 minutes. Sometimes Rocky lost on purpose. Sometimes he didn't. But every time, the house felt alive. And Rocky felt rich in ways money could never measure. Balancing provider and presence. Providing for a family is an honor. But it can also become an excuse. Rocky knew men who buried themselves in work, claiming they were doing it for the family. He understood the temptation. Work is measurable. Achievements are visible. Parenting is subtle. But he made a promise early on: he would not let his child know him only as a paycheck. So he scheduled his time intentionally. He guarded family dinners. He attended school events. He learned the names of friends, teachers, favorite cartoons. He wanted to be remembered not just as the man who paid the bills, but as the man who showed up. The hard days. Not every day is magical. There are tantrums in grocery stores. There are slammed doors and shouted words. There are moments when patience thins. Rocky had days when exhaustion made him short-tempered. Days when he questioned whether he was doing enough. Days when he feared he was repeating mistakes from his own childhood. But fatherhood isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. After arguments came conversations. After discipline came hugs. After mistakes came growth. And through it all, love remained constant. Seeing himself through new eyes. One afternoon, while helping with homework, his child said something simple. "My dad is strong." Rocky smiled automatically. But then the words continued. "He's strong because he helps people and he doesn't quit." That stopped him. His child wasn't describing muscles. They were describing character. And for the first time, Rocky realized the legacy he was building wasn't about reputation. It was about reflection. His child was learning what strength meant by watching him live it. Family traditions. Over time, small traditions took root. Friday night pizza. Sunday morning pancakes. Birthday letters written by hand. Annual camping trips, even if they ended in rainstorms and burnt marshmallows. Traditions became anchors. They gave the year rhythm. They created stories that would be told decades later. Remember when? Rocky cherished those phrases. Because they meant they were building something lasting. Watching independence bloom. The first day of school arrived faster than he expected. Tiny backpack. Shoelaces double knotted. A brave face hiding nervousness. Rocky knelt down and adjusted the straps one last time. "You've got this," he said. And as his child walked into the building without looking back, something shifted. Pride and ache collided in his chest. Fatherhood, he realized, is a constant process of letting go in small increments. Teaching them to walk so they can run. Teaching them to think so they can decide. Teaching them to love so they can build lives of their own. And every step toward independence is both a victory and a goodbye. The conversations that matter. As years passed, the conversations deepened. About friendship. About failure. About heartbreak. One night, long after bedtime, his child sat on the edge of his bed and asked, "How do you know if you're good enough?" Rocky took a breath. Because this question wasn't theoretical. It was inherited. He spoke honestly. "You're good enough because you're trying. Because you care. Because you get up when things are hard." It wasn't a perfect answer. But it was real. And fatherhood taught him that real matters more than perfect. Protecting.